that's been around for more than 30 years. Plus, we guarantee all our labor and materials. Call Dales Roofing today for a free estimate, 882-2158, or visit dalesroofing.com.
KWTO AM 560 is now streaming the Rush Limbaugh program. Go to radiospringfield.com, click on the KWTO icon, and click Listen Live, 11 to 2 Monday through Friday, and at its special time this Saturday, noon to 3.
How we doing, everybody? Thank you for tuning in. It's Morning Line on AM 560, KWTO. And we've got a fantastic topic we're going to visit now with the Show Me Institute's James Shuls. James, are you on the phone?
I'm here, Tim.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate you being here, and I hope folks will turn their radio up because this is some really good information that you're going to learn this morning about local school districts. And of course, we're going to get into House Bill 253, which tomorrow is the start of the veto session when the lawmakers are looking to override that veto, and it doesn't look good, but we need to do what we can to try to flip that around. First of all, James Shuls is with the Show Me Institute. Tell the folks, what is Show Me Institute?
So the Show Me Institute is a free market think tank. We're a 501c3, which means we're a nonprofit charity. We're a research organization, so we research the facts and we put the information out there for Missourians to have.
You're not a lobby group, but you do what you can to get the facts out, be they as it may.
Absolutely.
And that's important in this. And the first thing I want to ask you, then we're going to get to this Missouri School Improvement Program. But the first thing I want to ask you, I've been dying to ask you this. Over the last day or two, we've been talking about this House Bill 253, and I got an email from a listener that says, well, $7 million are at stake. The local school superintendent is threatening that this money is going to go away from our school district if House Bill 253 is overridden. Now, what is the truth in this? This is from the Show Me Institute, James Shuls. If House Bill 253 goes through, will the school districts lose money?
Well, you're asking me kind of to look into a crystal ball here. The money doesn't have to leave the school district. So the way that the budget works is the legislature puts forth the budget for how much is going to be spent on the schools. And they have already done that. They have already allotted the funds. And the governor then would have to take the funds out of education. So he says that if 253 goes through, that it's going to result in a reduction in taxed revenue. Well, there are lots of things in place that probably wouldn't create a big reduction in revenue for the state. So there's a lot of posturing going on here. And so I think the bottom line is the only way that this hurts the school districts and takes money away from schools is if the politicians make it hurt the school district. So that means if they have to cut the budget, then the governor goes through and looks and cuts just out of education, then it's possible that the school districts could lose money. But
like that's going to happen.
Doesn't have to be the case at all.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
Well, you know, the way that, like I said, there's a lot of posturing going on here with this bill. And most likely there wouldn't be large cuts to education. And this reminds me a lot of what we saw at the federal level with, the cuts that were supposed to happen in all the different service areas. A lot of times they put out sort of these hypothetical lists of where cuts might be expected to intimidate or scare people or whatever it is. But I think when we come down to the facts, the chances are that the districts wouldn't receive as big a cuts, and they certainly wouldn't have to have cuts unless the legislature and the governor make it be so.
One last question.
If they could find no other place to cut, I would be surprised.
One last question. Is there not a trigger or a watermark inside of House Bill 253 whereby the tax cuts don't happen unless the revenue is there to fund the schools?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, so there are all kinds of safeguards and triggers in place where the bill has been very carefully designed so that it wouldn't result in decreased revenue. And so, like I said, a lot of it seems a little bit overblown to me. And I understand the school districts, if you're told by the governor that money is going to be cut from the districts, you would be concerned. So I understand their concern, but I think a lot of it is absolutely overblown because you're right. There are triggers in place to prevent reductions, and there are certainly lots of other places in government we could cut before cutting education.
It's intimidation and it's scare tactics. And for the local school superintendent to go to the Chamber of Commerce here and say, we're going to lose $7 million if House Bill 253 goes through, that's not being ingenuous.
Right. I think that you're right. I think, there was a great piece in the Washington, Missouri, and I don't remember who wrote it, but it was basically saying, essentially what I'm saying, that the tax cuts don't have to happen like this. They don't have to work out in this way so that the school districts take a hit. And the only way they do is if politicians make it so. Yeah. So to me, it seems like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You say it so, and then you make it so.
Yep.
But we don't have to make it so.
It's intimidation and a scare tactic to get folks not to back this tax cut, House Bill 253. And I know that you're not a lobby group, and I can say that. You probably can't. But it's very frustrating that the public should be told the truth and not be given a scare tactic by a school superintendent here locally. And so the Springfield Chamber, they support the veto. The city council last night, they support the veto. While a small businessman who's given one shot at maybe getting a little tax break, he's not important enough to be a cog in the wheel. Anyway, that's my soapbox, and I'll get off it here. Coming up, James Shuls. We're going to talk about the Missouri School Improvement Program and where Springfield lists, along with the other regional schools like Bolivar, Nixa, Ozark, Republic. So James Shuls is coming up with the Show Me Institute next on Morning Line AM 560 KWTO. Back on Morning Line as we visit with James Shuls from the Show Me Institute. And James, this is really good information that you're going to tell folks about. Turn your radios up, folks, because you'll really learn something. Missouri School Improvement Program, MSIP. That's what it stands for. Missouri School Improvement Program, MSIP. What is that, James?
Yeah, so the Missouri School Improvement Program, we call it MSIP, is basically the evaluation system. It's how the state evaluates each school district. We're in the 5th edition now. We've been using a version of MSIP 5 for a number of years, but we're in what's called MSIP 5 now. And so what the state does, they look at each school district's academic achievement, the achievement of different subgroups like minorities or students who receive free and reduced price lunches. They look at the attendance rate, the graduation rate, and how well or whether or not those students are being placed into colleges or careers.
Bottom line is it tells you who's got the best schools.
Well, it tells you who has the best district. That's what it is. It's an evaluation of how well districts are doing, not how well individual schools are doing.
I got you. Not particular schools in the district, but how the district is doing.
Right, and as it turns out, schools in southwest Missouri, around the Springfield area, are doing very well. So what they do is they convert the MSIP 5 scores into a percentage. That's easy for us to think of. So most of the schools in the Springfield area, Bolivar, Nixa, Ozark, Republic, Willard, some of the bigger ones, are all doing very well. They're scoring above 90%, and that could mean they could be dubbed accredited with distinction. That's
90%. That's the level.
Above 90%.
All right, so Nixa, who has the highest score, Bolivar, right, Ozark, Republic, and Willard all are above 90%.
Yes.
How does Springfield do?
Springfield's just below at 88.9. So they're still accredited, and that's still a pretty good score for the district, but they're not, above the mark of accredited with distinction. So, but the problem here is, as I sort of alluded to, is all the districts are doing very well, but there are real differences in terms of the achievement of those districts. So take Ozark and Republic, for instance. They scored the exact same on MSIP 5. They both had a 96.1 on the MSIP 5 evaluation. But if you look at the achievement of students in those districts, in Ozark, you have nearly 69% of students scoring proficient in advanced, and only 56 in Republic. And so there's a whole lot of difference between those two districts, yet they're scoring the exact same on the district level evaluation. And that's sort of problematic to me. I think that the evaluation is still not quite getting at the fine details that people need to know about their school districts.
I'll give you an example, and I hope that you'll discuss this. In Springfield, Gray Elementary School, as opposed to York Elementary School. I mean, they all get the same because it's done by the district, but when you get to the individual school level, there's a big contrast.
Right. So both Gray and York are considered accredited schools because they're in an accredited school district. But at Gray, you have 72% of kids scoring proficient or advanced in language arts, and about 75%. So about 3/4 of students at Gray Elementary are doing well. They're on grade level. But you have less than 1/4 of students at York Elementary that are on grade level.
Say that again. Turn your radios up. Say that again, James.
So 3/4 of the students at Gray Elementary are on grade level, but only 1/4 at York Elementary.
All right.
There's about 50 percentage point difference between these two districts, yet we consider them both accredited.
Okay. And it's accredited because it's done by the district, not the individual school.
Absolutely.
Listen to this, folks. Turn your radios up. Springfield has 8 schools where less than a third of the students are performing at grade level.
Yes. I mean, that's a pretty staggering number. 8 schools in both math and language arts where only less than 1/3 of students are on grade level. And this, the district itself gets an 88.9 on MSIP 5. They're considered accredited, but it masks the big variations that exist within the district.
Well, that's really interesting information, and it gets back to how, it's a little bit of a mirror, smoky mirror, when you see these high scores, but then when you get down to the really bare bones of it, there are schools that are failing our kids.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are some really poor performing schools in Springfield. And yes, many of those schools are located in the poorer areas of town. But that shouldn't be an excuse to have a failing school. We should be figuring out ways to improve the school or ways to give those students access to better schools. And I should mention that Springfield does have an inter-district choice program. So if you're in a Gray Elementary, you're in York Elementary, the lower performing school, and you want your kid to go to Gray Elementary, you can apply. However, of course, there are limits to space, and not all students are able to switch schools, and so lots of them are trapped in York Elementary or some of the other 8 schools performing well below where we would like them to be. So,
are some of the worst performing schools being protected by, as an example, teachers' unions?
Well, I think the unions in Springfield aren't as strong as we might think in some other big cities, but I think the low-performing schools are being protected by a system that focuses on the district and doesn't focus on the individual school or the individual student. And that's the problem. We need to stop thinking about education from a district perspective and think of it at the student's perspective.
At the individual school level. I mean,
Right.
you make a great point. I believe Don's on the phone, wants to talk about it. Don, are you there?
Yes, sir, Tim. In case you didn't know this, and your guest, Wanda Gray Elementary was named after my cousin, Dr. Wanda Gray, and she's doing fine. She's been retired for a number of years.
That's good to know. Do you have a comment?
Yes, I do, because like you brought up the teachers union, which I was going to do, the NEA is a terrorist organization.
Oh, no, it's not either. Not a terrorist organization. Thanks for the call, Don. Folks, I'm happy to take your comment, but make it reasonable if you would.
Let me address the teachers unions real quick. I mean, teachers unions' job is to protect the interest of the teachers. That's what they're supposed to do. The problem is that what's in the best interest of teachers isn't always what's in the best interest of kids. And when it gets in the way of what's in the best interest of kids, that's when we have a real problem.
Excellent point. Nobody is against a teacher, and if you say something like talking, about the teachers' unions, that folks get defensive about. Nobody's against teachers, but what we want to do is get the lowest performing schools up. We'll move up and really take this down to the grassroots level so that kids that are struggling can improve. Now, this House Bill 253 that the legislature was going to try to override. And what we hear is that the schools or they're threatening, because if they were to override 253, that it threatens the funds, and that's not the case, is it, James?
Well, like I said, it's a lot like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's where you say something's going to happen and then you make it happen. So right now the governor is saying that's what's going to happen, but it absolutely doesn't have to happen. There are safeguards in place that won't allow the tax dollars to go down, and there are lots of other places, if there were a reduction, which I don't think there would be, but if there were a reduction in revenue, we could cut other places and not have to focus on education. It's like you've mentioned, it is distorting the facts, and it's a way to scare local schools and individuals.
Yes, it is. It's intimidation. That's exactly what it is, and it's at the foot of the small businessman. They're trying to do something for the small businessman, and he's getting it in the shorts every time. Okay, Ed, go ahead. Do you have a comment?
Well, I had a longer comment, but my time's run out. I just wanted to point out the veracity of a fact. Somebody said they were a cousin to that wonderful educator, Dr. Gray. Dr. Gray is dead, and she was a wonderful person, school administrator, loved the kids and everything.
Go ahead. Tell us your point.
She may be in a better place, but
right.
She's not here anymore. Thanks.
Is that it? All right, whatever. Anyway, I think that the point is well taken today, that you get these high scores from all of these school districts, and they all sound great, and everybody's doing a great job, but then you get down into the nitty-gritty of it, and there are schools that are underperforming for our students.
Absolutely, and I don't want your listeners to think this is just a problem in Springfield. I mean, we see similar, but not as big of differences in Nixa, the highest performing district. You have one elementary school, like I said, where 3/4 of students are performing at grade level, and another were just 56%. And so, even in the very good districts, there are a lot of differences within the district and schools, and that's the problem. We need to focus more at the school level, looking at how well each school is doing and providing better opportunities for every student instead of focusing on the district.
All right, this information is available at showmeinstitute.org, showmeinstitute.org. Talk about your website, if you would, James.
Absolutely. Your readers or your listeners can go on our website, find all kinds of resources, not just on education, but all kinds of other policy areas. You can also check out our blog at showmedaily.org.
Are y'all going to be watching what happens in Jeff City tomorrow?
Oh, absolutely.
Can we get the information on your website about it?
You can. Patrick Ishmael has been doing a lot of writing on this topic, and you could find his writing on our website.
Well, I tell you, folks, if you want the truth about House Bill 253, and the local Chamber of Commerce is for the veto, the local city councils for the veto. You want to hear the truth about House Bill 253, go to showmeinstitute.org, showmeinstitute.org, and you can learn about it, or you can telephone the Show Me Institute if you want to get involved at 314-454-0647, 314-454-0647. What's the bottom line that we need to learn today, James?
I mean, from my perspective, that we need to focus education on kids and on their individual schools, stop looking at the district level, and when we do that, I think all students will be in a better place.
Appreciate your time, James. Very good.